Okay, so today I'm going to demonstrate an alternative method for tapping threads onto a shake. I make these little pieces here. These are precision pieces on a lathe, and the problem is that these threads here, these are very slim shakes, and when you tap them, it's possible that you could get that die. I'm sorry, the die cross-threaded onto this shake, and with as much time as I have into each one of these pieces, with all the cuts that I have to do on a lathe, I don't want to take the risk of cross-threading one of these guys. Okay, so the thing that I do is I actually use a lathe to cut the threads, but I don't use it the way that you would normally use a lathe. Normally you would have a lathe, it would, you would specify what the threads per inch are, or the threads per millimeter, or whatever the scale is, and then you would set the lathe up to cut, to run a cut along the axis of the piece that's being done. But the problem is you normally have to make a few passes. Usually it's about 3 or 4 passes to get those threads right. And unless you do it perfectly each time, and it does, on a lathe, it does give you a counter. It starts at 1, and then you go, all the way to the length of the shaft. You have to disengage the shaft so it doesn't thread all the way up. There's a lot of things that can go wrong when you're using a lathe to cut threads. So likewise, if you use a die, you're not assured that you're going to have a perfect thread every time. Especially, these Taiwanese dies these days. This one here, I think this one's from Japan, but most of the ones that I have are from Taiwan, India, that type of stuff. They don't have very deep. The throats on these things are not recessed very well, and they don't really catch this to make sure that this is square going into the die. So there's a huge possibility that I'll get one cross-threaded, and all the time that I put into all the other machine functions on this thing, there's like 5 or 6 different cuts on here. All that time is wasted because the threads are the last thing that I cut. So instead of risking that, what I do is I still use I use a die to cut it, but I set it up on a chuck with this, okay, with a socket and an extension. I stick the piece into the socket, just like that, okay, and then I set it up on my chuck. But what I did was I did a trick, because this shaft here is a little bit too big to stick into a drill, so I cut it off. I machined the end of it smooth, okay, and then I took it. Now I can take it, excuse me here, now I can take it and I can stick it right there in my little drill chuck. Just chuck it up, tighten it up here, okay, and that piece is in. Now what I do with the die is I take the die, right there, the die, and I'll go ahead and put this on my little clamp here. There we go. I take the die and I put the throated end into the chuck on the lathe. Okay, just like that. I don't know if you can see that. There we go. Okay. And then I just tighten it up. I give it a little spin just to make sure I've got it. No, I don't have it straight. Okay. I give it a little spin to make sure I got it straight, but it's not straight right now. There we go. Okay. Give it a little spin to make sure it's true. Still a little bit off. Okay, give it a little spin there. Okay, now it's true. Okay. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, okay, well, how are you going to cut threads using the lathe? I don't use the power on the lathe. I turn the power off, okay, and then I do it manually. But I know that this axis is lined up. So I take one of these guys right here, right there, okay. I pop it into my little setup, right in there. The shank comes out. If the shank didn't come down, I would just machine this until it did, the socket until it did. I just got a cheapy little socket set, cut it into pieces and did that. Now what I do is I take this guy here and I move it into position. First of all, I got to get my chuck fixed, okay? I move it right into position. I get it a couple, an inch or whatever away from the workpiece. The workpiece an inch away from the die, okay? And then I'm gonna try to zoom in so you can see what's going on. And then I just kind of work it in, get it right into position, and then I just start to move the lathe. Now at the same time that I move the lathe, I'm actually moving this piece forward just a little bit, just to keep it tight so it starts to threads well, and just kind of, whoops, want to get this straight here. Oh, here we go. Okay. All right. And that way, I know, you can hear it cutting. That way, I know that I have started the threads, perpendicular to the axis of the shaft. Now, what happens is, as you get more threads cut, it gets harder to cut. Okay, so I just get it started with this. Then I back it off. I just back this piece away. I'll zoom it back here. I back this piece away, and it actually goes a lot faster when I'm not using the camera. Just pop it back on there for the next one. Now it's straight. So then, take my little screwdriver, take my socket, make sure that I'm engaged to thread in, and then I just turn out the threads. About every third turn, I back it off half a turn. Oh yeah, and I do spray the lubricant on there, of course. Okay, so about every third turn, just back it off to break it loose, go back in, and then I just do it until it's seated. Once you get into the rhythm of doing a few of these, then it goes pretty quickly, but like I said, I'm kind of dealing with the camera here, so it makes it awkward because I have to reach around the camera. Okay, now it's seated, okay? Then I just back it out. Okay. Pull it out of here. Looks like I dropped it. Let's pull it out. Okay. Now I've got nice threads on there. Okay, so to check it, I always do a quality check. Okay, so to check it, I come over to my other table. What I did was I took a piece of shaft and I cut it off, And I got to find my shaft piece. Oh, here we go. Okay. Took a piece of shaft, cut it off, tapped it to be the female version of those threads. So then I just take the piece that I just cut. See if I can find where the camera is. Okay, I just take the piece that I just cut and just thread it on. Make sure it's square. Looks like it's square, and I'm done. So a pretty simple little way of doing it. You know, I don't like to waste time. As much time as I have to cutting each and every one of these, I just don't have time to waste, you know, worrying about whether one of these things, whether the threads on one of these is wrong. And I've done a number of them now, so, you know, process is tried and true. Goes in there real nice and nifty like, and we're square, and it's all good. So it's kind of an alternative way of cutting threads, you know, on a lathe, without actually going through the process of using the lathe function to cut threads with. But it does a pretty nice job, and it's going to get these square every time. So thanks for watching.